أعوذ بالله من شر الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. There was one voice that was not a 10 p.m. salawat, but otherwise it was a after 10 p.m. salawat. Let us recite a louder and more energetic salawat, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah. Every human being is after that connection with God, that sense of spirituality, that sense of sakina, that tranquility that we feel inside of ourselves. Even those that don't believe in God, they say that I am not a religious person. Even those people are still after that connection with God, but they don't realize it. They don't recognize it. And the reason is that all of us, from a fitri perspective, we have been created to seek infinity, to seek eternity, to seek that ultimate source of perfection. The only difference is that the religious people recognize that we have to be seeking God, while others who are maybe non-believers, they seek it in secondary ways, secondary sources. Now, as believers who are seeking that tranquility, that spirituality, that connection, we typically go and we try to connect through things like salah, things like the sawm, the fasting, things like the hajj pilgrimage, the giving of charity, being good towards others. And of course, these are all the foundations of our faith. Allah has given us instructions that if you want a connection, these are the ways in which you can connect with me. You can gain my pleasure, my satisfaction. But alongside these acts of ibadah, the more overt, there are other things that we sometimes miss. And the reason that we miss them is because they seem so ordinary. They don't seem spiritual. One of those things that I wanted to open up tonight is this idea of showing ihsan, showing goodness towards the parents. How many of us have looked as goodness towards parents as a way to connect towards Allah? It's too mundane, it's too ordinary. Of course, everyone says it's a good thing, but how important is it in this spiritual journey that we are on? Is it really that important? What makes it even more ironic is that we live in a time today that this idea of being good towards the parents, it's not really given any importance in our society. Many times you'll see this yourselves, that when children, they turn 18, 19, 20, they separate from the parents, and maybe they'll call their parents once or twice a year, they'll visit, they'll come back home. But in reality, the connection has been severed. It's finished. What we want to do is we want to see, is there a secret that Allah has placed in this issue of our relationship with our parents? And we really want to open this subject up, inshallah, over the following 2 nights. The first question that we ask is that when we look at the verses of the Holy Quran, how does Allah view the relationship that we have with our parents? There's a very pivotal verse in the Quran which says the following: It says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُ إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And then Allah, He continues. He says, إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبْرِ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. Let's really dissect this verse, because there's a lot of things here which are going to shock you. Number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that your Lord has decreed that you shall not worship anyone except Him. Tawheed. Then He says, and He has enjoined kindness to the parents. Whether one of them or both of them attain old age, do not say to them even a word of contempt. Do not say to them that word uff. Rather, address them in terms of respect and honor. Now, there's a few very strange things with this verse. Number one, Allah is saying that when you speak to the parents, you should not even use the word uff. Do you know what the scholars of the Arabic language say about uff? They say that it is the least way that you can show dislike or distaste towards another human being. You know, in English, sometimes when we are upset with someone, we say, It's the least way that we could show that we are displeased with something that they've done. Allah, He says that when you are dealing with your parents, I don't want you to use even the least word of distaste. And then He mentioned something else in the beginning of the verse. I don't know if you noticed it. He began the verse by speaking about Tawheed. He said that one of the things that I am ordering you to do, I am commanding you to do, is that you should worship no one except for Allah. And then He takes that idea of Tawheed, that idea of monotheism, and He connects it with this idea of ihsan towards the parents. Ya Allah, what in the world does this idea of worshiping you have to do with being good to parents? It seems as if these are two diametrically opposed concepts. I mean, we all know it's good to be kind to the parents, but why is Allah connecting these two concepts? It's as if He is saying that if you want to worship me, then the condition of it is that you also have to be good to the parents. You're not going to be able to worship me properly in the way that I want unless and until you show this type of behavior towards those that raised you. Very strange, isn't it? Because we don't see it that way. We see it as if these are two different concepts. I'm worshiping Allah, but sometimes I'm going to get enraged with my parents. I'm going to get angry with them, especially as they begin to get a little bit older. You know, when people get old, they begin to weaken. Their minds aren't as sharp, their bodies aren't as strong. They begin to say things, do things that annoy us. They upset us. But Allah is saying that if you are so lucky that one of them, or maybe Allah blesses you, both of them, they reach that age where they become old alongside you, I don't want you to even say the word uff to them. I want you to say beautiful words, kind words to them. This is verse number 1. The second verse, where Allah speaks about the parents, it gets even stranger. Allah, He says that we have enjoined man concerning his parents. And then Allah reminds us, it's so easy to forget this point. Allah, He says that his mother carried him through weakness upon weakness. And then He says that she weaned him for 2 years. You know, sometimes we forget how difficult it is for mothers to carry us in their stomachs. I mean, of all the ways that you can carry someone, you can support someone, imagine that you are carrying someone within yourself. The discomfort of that, the pain of that, the child kicking, the morning sickness, the nausea that comes along with it, all of these things that mothers go through. Allah is reminding us about this very important issue. And then He says something where it should shock us. He says, give thanks to me and give thanks to your parents. And then He reminds us again that to me is your return. That's all of us. One day we are going to stand before Allah. We are going to be questioned about all of the things that we did. But within the context of this verse, we are going to be questioned about how we dealt with our parents. Why is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is again connecting these two issues that don't seem connected? He says that if you want to show thankfulness to me, then you have to. It's a condition that you have to show thankfulness to your parents. And we have this tradition from the Ahlul Bayt, from Imam Rida, where he says that Allah has ordered, He has ordered that He and the mother and the father are to be given thanks. So whoever does not thank his parents, he has in reality not thanked Allah. Why is Allah giving so much attention to this? Why is there so much focus to this issue? And the traditions, they continue. It just, continues down this line where Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, do not say even a word of contempt to your parents, for your Lord has forbidden it. Another person asked Rasulullah, he says that, Ya Rasulullah, what are the rights of my mother and my father? You know what Rasulullah replies with? He says that these two are your paradise and your hell. Isn't that a strange way of responding to this? He doesn't give him that you should behave like this, that the rights of your parents are this. He says that your parents are your paradise and your hellfire in this dunya and the next. These traditions just continue one after the other after the other. But here there's a very key point that I wanted to go over tonight, because we don't really see things in this way. And that is that when we are living in this dunya, one of the reasons why we don't understand some of the rules, some of the recommendations, some of the commands that Allah tells us to do, is that we don't understand the system of creation that Allah has created for us. What do I mean by this? All of us, we recognize the system of physical cause and effect. We know that if I want to achieve certain goals in life, I have to go through this system of cause and effect. I'll give an example. If I want to get a really good job, I want to make a good income, what do I have to do? I can't just sit at home and do dua. That's not going to work, as much as we wish it was that way. What I have to do is I have to go through the school system. I have to go through university. I have to get a degree. I have to go through internship. I have to then go and I have to build a resume. I have to send the resume to different companies, different corporations. And eventually one of them is going to hire me, and through that process I am going to receive rizq. Allah is sending it, but it is coming through this process of physical cause and effect. Another example, if I want to get married, of course, the sitting at home and doing dua is not going to work. What do I have to do? I have to go out there. I have to search for a suitable candidate. I have to maybe send the parents over to different households. They can speak. And then we have to go to that house, you have to speak to that individual, and eventually that connection is made and you get married. Alongside this system of physical cause and effect that we know so well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's created another system. But it is a system that you and I, we can't see. We can just see sometimes the effects. This is the metaphysical system of cause and effect. What does that mean? It means that just like Allah has this system of physical cause and effect, there are certain things that I will do that will end up having repercussions on the spiritual level, on the metaphysical level, but I can't necessarily see it. But I will definitely feel those effects. We have these traditions from the Ahlul Bayt that go into this idea of this metaphysical system that Allah has created. What do the Ahlul Bayt say? Number one, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, rather, let me go a little bit down here. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. That's too far. I'll try. Yeah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the traditions that we have from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam is that he says the following about this metaphysical system that he's created. He says that lucky is the one that is good towards his parents. Why? Because Allah will increase and extend his lifespan. Ya Allah, how? What connection is there that if I am good to my parents, you will actually take that life that maybe you had written you are going to live for 30 years, 40 years, 60 years, 80 years, 90 years, and you're going to extend it 10 or 20 or 30 years. How does that work? We have no idea. But what we know is that Allah has created this system, and that when we act in this dunya, it has certain repercussions. One of them is that when we are good to our parents, your life will be extended. That accident that was going to happen, Allah prevents it. That illness that was going to take place, Allah prevents it. He protects you. All of it, why? Because of that goodness that you show towards your mother and father. Another tradition, Imam Hadi alayhi salam, he says that acting in an ill manner, when you show disrespect, when you hurt the feelings of your parents, when you break their heart, he says acting in an ill manner towards one's parents, it brings about poverty and disgrace. How? How is it that I say something to my parents, I begin to lose money, I begin to lose that income that Allah had given to me? What happens? We don't know. But what we know is that Allah has created that system right alongside that physical cause and effect. He has also created that system of metaphysical cause and effect for us. So many of the things that we are told to do, we don't understand why. Allah says if you do it, it is going to have beautiful repercussions, beautiful consequences, both in this world as well as the next. Now, some of you might be asking, what is the meaning of ihsan? We went over that verse of the Holy Quran where Allah says that I want you to act with ihsan towards your parents. Goodness is a little bit ambiguous, isn't it? It's a little bit difficult for us to pin down. But the way that the scholars have defined ihsan is they have said that it is anything which in that society that you live in, when people see it, they say that is an individual that is showing goodness to his parents. It could be kindness in words. It could be a phone call that you make regularly to your parents. It could be helping them when they are in need of help. It could be many of these things. But it is that which when people they look and they see, they say, this individual is showing ihsan. He is a good son. He is a good daughter towards the parents. Now here I wanted to open up a few stories of some of the effects of what happens when we show either respect or disrespect towards our parents. Story number one, it is a story which is given to us from the land of Iran. There was this individual by the name of Rajab Ali Khayyat who lived in Iran. This was maybe 50, 60 some years ago. This individual, unlike the rest of us, because of his spirituality, he had the ability to look into the metaphysical world, meaning that when he saw you, he could actually see into your soul. He could actually see the good and the evil deeds which you had performed. And so just imagine this man is walking down the street, and whenever he sees someone, he can see all of the sins and the good deeds that they have committed. We might see that as something amazing, but I think it's something difficult to deal with. You know, we don't want to see all of that information about people. I think we'd rather not know many things. In any case, this individual, he had this ability and people knew about it. One day, a young man, he approaches Rajab Ali Khayyat. He says, Rajab Ali, I've been having this problem. Maybe you can help resolve it for me. Rajab Ali, he says, what is the problem? What are you dealing with? He says that ever since 1 month ago, the business which I had, and it was so successful, everything was going beautifully. Suddenly, everything got overturned. Every business deal that I engage in, it doesn't happen. It fails. Every time I'm about to sell something, the buyer reneges, they back off, and I'm left holding those losses. He says the losses that I have, they are becoming more and more and more. And you know, in the Middle East and many countries, in Iran at that time, if you had debt, it wasn't like here. Here what happens is that, you know, you file for bankruptcy. You say, I don't have the money, I'm sorry. And your home is protected, your car is protected to a degree. In Iran, what they would do at that time, and maybe even now, I'm not sure, is that they would actually take you to a prison, a special type of prison, which was known as a debtor's prison. So if you owed enough money, you couldn't pay it, the police would come, they would take you, and you would be in this prison until one of your relatives, one of your loved ones, they had mercy on you. He says, I'm about to get hauled away to prison. I don't know what to do. Please help me. Perhaps this young man, he thought that Rajab Ali Khayyat would give him a dua, a ta'weez, a dhikr, or something spiritual that could lift this negative energy that was over him. Rajab Ali, he looks at him. And he turns to him and he says that what I'm seeing is that you had a fight with your mother and your mother is not content with you. She's upset with you. The young man says, impossible. Impossible. We live with my mother. She's in the same household. We have a good relationship. Nothing's happened. Rajab Ali, he says, well, this is what I'm seeing. The young man, he goes to his house. He approaches his mother. He says, Mother, are you upset at me? Is there a problem that we have? His mother says, why are you asking me this question? He says, just, Mother, please, give me the answer. I need to know the answer to this question. The mother says, yes, I'm upset with you. She says, do you remember 1 month ago, we were sitting and we had just finished eating lunch. And I was sitting down, the lunch had finished, the meal had finished, and your wife was picking up all of the different plates that were on that table. And suddenly you yelled at me and you said, Mother, do you think that I have brought home a servant so that you can laze about? Do you remember that? The mother reminds him of this. The son remembers. She says that when you said that to me, it broke my heart because I've gotten old. I've been helping you my whole life. I've reached this age where I'm not able to do what I was able to do before. That really broke my heart. The son begins to kiss his mother. He kisses her hands. He apologizes profusely. He narrates that on that same day, he says that business that was failing every single day for the past month, he says suddenly it reverted back to that original form. All of my debts were paid. The situation became better. And he says, I was saved from that very difficult situation. How many times have we seen something in our own lives? We've been angry with our parents. We've disrespected our parents. And then we go and we're living our lives and then something negative happens, something bad happens. But we don't connect this issue with that issue. We just say, for example, it was bad luck. Someone backed up into my car and I don't know what happened. If we think back, if we really go into detail, I think that many of those negative incidents, many of those things which caused us so much pain, so much suffering, we could connect them to maybe something that we did with our parents. This was the first story. The second story, we are going to cross borders. We're going to go to the land of Iraq. In Iraq, there was a very famous scholar by the name of Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi. Very well-known scholar. He narrates himself that he says that one time, one of the office workers that worked in his office, he wanted to take the day off. I think it was 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and he wanted to go home a little bit early. So he approaches Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi, and he says that if you'll permit me, I wanted to go home a little bit early today. Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi asks him why, what is the reason? He says that the reason is that my father has come from the village and I want to go be with him today. I want to spend some time with him today. Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi, he becomes very happy. He says, go, spend some time with your father. But he says that I have a story that I want to tell you very quickly before you leave. The office worker says, what is it? He says that when I was a young boy, I was about 11 or 12 years old. He says that I was growing up in the city of Najaf because my father had moved us there. We were studying. He says that one day in Najaf, my mother called me. She said, my son, I want you to go and I want you to tell your father that lunch is ready. Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi, he goes upstairs. And he's about to tell his father that, Father, the lunch is ready, come on downstairs. When he sees that his father has fallen asleep. He goes to wake him up and then he remembers that, what if I wake up my father, but my father becomes upset with me? He says, my son, I didn't ask to be woken up. You know, sometimes, especially in the Middle East, I don't know what it is about those afternoon naps, it really hits the spot. Something to do with the weather, I don't know what it is, but it really feels good and you don't want to be woken up from that afternoon nap. He says that, what if I wake him up and then my father gets upset at me? But then he's thinking, on the other hand, my mother told me to go and to tell my father, what do I do in this situation? How old is Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi at this point? He's 11 years old, he's 12 years old. Look at the level of understanding that he has about Islam. Sometimes we reach the age of 50, 60, 70, we still don't have this type of understanding. He says, I didn't know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. He says, suddenly an idea came to me. The idea was this, that I'm going to go down and I am going to begin to kiss my father's feet. He begins to kiss his father's feet. His father suddenly wakes up from that. He looks down, he sees that his son is kissing his feet. It's really a deep sign of devotion, a deep sign of love. It's one of the perhaps deepest things that one can do. He says that when my father saw this, he raised his hands in dua. He began to do dua for me. He says, I swear by Allah that every single dua that I saw my father do for me on that day, it was fulfilled for me. I have seen every single one become fulfilled. How many individuals go into the Hawza? How many thousands of individuals? They are studying in the Hawza, dedicated, intelligent, hardworking. Out of all of those tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, how many of them become the likes of Ayatollah Mar'ashi Najafi? You see, we don't connect the dots. We don't see the connection between these things. And we go out pursuing that world of physical cause and effect. We're thinking to ourselves that if I work hard, if I study, if I go to the right schools, and of course all of these, they have a very potent effect. But we say if I do all of these things that I am going to become successful. What we don't realize is that Allah has that parallel system. That He says if you want to become successful, of course you have to work hard. But alongside working hard, there are these secrets. If you go after these secrets, in fact, it may be even more potent, more powerful than the things that we do in this dunya. Now, another question that comes up here, and this is a very important question, is that what are the limits of ihsan towards parents? Because many times one of the questions is that, look, sometimes our parents ask us to do things that we don't want to do. They encroach upon my rights as a human being. They want me to study something specific. They want me to marry a specific person. I don't want to do these things. I have my own desires. I have my own life. Is it that Allah has said that we have to do everything that our parents have told us to do, or else we're going to be cursed, for example? The answer is that no. Many times in our culture, what is told to us is that obedience to parents is wajib. Obedience to parents, of course, it is something beautiful, it is something good. But it isn't something which is wajib in and of itself. What do I mean? What is wajib in and of itself through the Quran, it is showing ihsan, showing goodness to the parents. And of course, listening to the parents, showing obedience to the parents, it is usually a part of ihsan. You can't be good towards someone if you're not going to listen to what they say, if you're going to go against their wishes all of the time. But there are situations where we are ordered to go against what our parents tell us. It's a command. And I'm going to give some examples here. Example number one is that sometimes we have an issue between the mother and the wife. This is more common in some communities. For example, in the Indo-Pak community, there's movies made about this. Movie after movie after movie. In fact, maybe all of the movies are about this subject. Of the mother-in-law that encroaches on the rights of the wife. And the son is stuck in the middle. He doesn't know what to do. On one hand, he says, I have to obey my mother, my parents. On the other hand, the mother is, in some cases, oppressing the wife, encroaching on the rights of the family. What is our responsibility here? The responsibility here is that whenever we see oppression taking place, it is your responsibility. This is the month of Muharram. It is your responsibility to stand against it. What if my mother gets upset? It doesn't matter. What if she says, I am going to disown you? It doesn't matter. We have the duty to stand up against oppression wherever it may be. It doesn't matter whether it is family or or those that are not family. This issue of oppression is one of the most important of issues. Another example. Your parents are pushing you to marry a particular person. You don't want to marry that person. Of course, here it's a good idea to really hear your parents out. They have insight into these issues that we may not have. But you've heard them out, you've consulted, you've thought about it. You just don't like this individual. You can't stand them. What is your responsibility? And your parents are pushing very hard. They're almost commanding you to marry this individual. In a tradition, this same question was asked from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Recite salawat. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was asked this question where the man comes and the man says, Ya Imam, I want to marry a woman, but my parents want me to marry someone else. Ya Imam, what should I do? I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. The Imam, he says something very pivotal. He says, marry the one that you desire and leave the one that your parents desire. Why? Because at the end of the day, you are the one that has to marry her. If you can't stand her already, for whatever reason it may be akhlaqi issues, it may be other issues. If you can't stand this person right now, what do you think is going to happen in 5 years, 10 years? It's going to get worse. What if the parents are pushing, no, you have to do this. If you want to please me, you have to do this. Here we are asked that we are able to push against this. We don't have to obey here. One of the important things though, and I'm going to end it here, is that regardless of what the parents do, regardless of whether they are rude, whether they rage, whether they are ill-mannered towards us, whatever it may be, they may be having a horrible day, they unload on us. One of the things which Allah asks us to do, and this is one of the hardest of things, is that we are asked to always maintain that ihsan, that goodness towards the parents. If they show rudeness to you, you should show kindness to them. You might ask, but that's not fair. Why is it that I am required to do this? Well, they're required to do that as well. But you are asked to take that higher road whenever this situation happens. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us the tawfiq, the ability to really recognize some of these doors that He has opened to become closer to Him. Just because that door is within our own homes, it's very close to us, we shouldn't neglect that door. We should understand just how valuable it is and how much of a blessing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. ثانية على حب الزهراء صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. ثالثة لتعجيل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمن صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I apologize, brothers and sisters. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, a quick reminder before we enter into the majlis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. As we've been doing every single night, inshallah, we enter into these majalis, shedding tears, inshallah. We hope that when we shed tears for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, we want these tears to reflect on our actions in our day-to-day lives, inshallah. If we have any shortcomings anywhere, inshallah, this can help us push to better improve our actions. This is going for first and foremost to myself. And they say that tears are a special opportunity in these nights. We're already on the night of Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, night 7, night of the 7th. So it's going by very quickly. This divine opportunity is passing by very quickly. And inshallah, we're able to benefit from the last few nights before the maqtal of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. The ulama tell us if you're unable to shed tears, even putting your head down in grief, inshallah, you get the same reward as if you were shedding tears. And another option that's given, or advice that's given, is that maybe trying to do istighfar before you begin the majalis of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, so that this may soften the heart and it be an enabling for us to shed more tears, inshallah, for the majalis. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I apologize. Is there any way that we can turn this light off? If there's anybody here. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I apologize, brothers and sisters. I think they were supposed to turn on different lights. I just don't want it, just so everybody's comfortable during the majalis. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, our beloved Holy Prophet, and the Ahlul Bayt that was in your homes that Allah blessed us with guidance and revelation. And upon you descend the angels day in and day out. Everybody together, Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, Nur Aini, Ya Hussein, Ya Habibi, Ya Hussein, Nur Aini, Ya Hussein. Our beloved Hussein, light of our eyes, Hussein. Ya Rahmatullah al-Wasi'ah, Hussein. O vast mercy of Allah, Hussein. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon you, our beloved Imam al-Hussein, our beloved oppressed Imam. The Imam was slaughtered by the shores of the Euphrates, while his mouth was dry of thirst. Tonight, dear brothers and sisters, is the night dedicated to the flag bearer of Abu Abdullah. Tonight is dedicated to the night of the brother of Abu Abdullah, Abul Fadl al-Abbas. A blessed poet brings the scene of Karbala and the story of the thirsty children to life. For he who doesn't know, then let him listen, for this tale is wielded in emotion. Toward the tribe of Hashim he was the moon. How can the moon be dragged to an early tomb? This is the tale of who held the banner
He who was to these women a mountain shield. If hurt wanted them, then it must break the shield. From him the enemy fled in ignorance. Has the Abbas or has Ali arisen? With their blood on his palms he reached the river and brought forth toward his lips the sweet water. And with that lit within him as a fire, when Hussein's thirsty children he remembers. Assalamu alayka ya Abul Fadl al-Abbas. Brothers and sisters, imagine the heat on the plains of Karbala. Those who have been to Iraq know how hot the scorching sun is. The women and the children in the tents of Abu Abdullah are suffering from thirst. The camp of Umar ibn Sa'd did not allow them a single drop of water. We recite in the ziyarah of Abu Fadl al-Abbas, Assalamu alayka ayyuha al-abdu الصالح المطيع لله ولرسوله ولأمير المؤمنين والحسن والحسين. Peace be upon you, O righteous servant of Allah, and the obedient one to Allah, to His Messenger, to Amir al-Mu'mineen, to Imam al-Hasan and Hussein. Peace be upon them. Al-Abbas had a special place in the hearts of Imam Ali, the heart of Abu Abdullah, and the heart of Zainab alayhi salam, and in the afterlife a special place that every martyr wishes to attain. Imam Zain al-Abidin once said, may Allah have mercy on my uncle Abbas. He was full of insight and firm in belief. He fought, was tested with a great tribulation, and sacrificed his life for Abu Abdullah until his arms were cut off. And my uncle Abbas has set a rank on the day of judgment that all the martyrs will wish to have attained. And how else would it be when he was asked by al-Banin to be the protector of Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam? When Amir al-Mu'mineen was on his deathbed, he began to issue his wills. He gave his wills to Imam al-Hassan, his wills to Imam al-Hussein. He called upon al-Abbas, my son, come here. He says, my daughter Zainab, come here. He put the right hand of Sayyida Zainab in the right hand of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. He looked at Abbas and said, my son Abbas, this is my wadi'ah, which means this is the person I'm entrusting you with, Abbas, as if Imam Ali was telling him to take care of her when the 10th of Muharram comes. خل عينك على زينب لو نزلت تفوف حسين أمانة يا ابني يا عباس خليها بشوفون العين. Keep your eye on her, Ya Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, if only you saw how we upheld your will, to see what Al-Abbas did for your Zainab on the day of Ashura. The children on the lands of Karbala were yelling for thirst, yelling for water. Abu Fadl al-Abbas couldn't handle it anymore. The companions were all martyred, the brothers all martyred, the children martyred. Hussein was becoming alone, no supporters and no soldiers. Abu Fadl al-Abbas came to Abu Abdullah and asked for permission to battle. Abu Abdullah denied the request in the beginning, saying if the flag bearer is gone, then everything is gone, Ya Abbas. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas continued to insist, and then Imam told him, I give you permission, but if going into battle is inevitable, then ask for some water for these children or go seek the water for the children. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas mounted his horse. He took the water skin and moved towards the Euphrates River on the battlefield. The enemies near the river and all around surrounded Abu Fadl al-Abbas. The son of Amir al-Mu'mineen enters into the battlefield. The enemies begin to shoot arrows at him and attack Abu Fadl al-Abbas. He battled them and killed a massive amount of the enemies. This is the son of Haydar al-Karrar, the greatest warrior. The enemies were shocked as if Imam Ali had been returning to the battlefield. Abbas separated them from the river. He reached the water and came down from the horse. We have a narration from Imam Ali to Abu Fadl al-Abbas, as before Imam Ali was passing away from this world, what were some of his father's last words to him as he was lying on his deathbed? When Amir al-Mu'mineen had been struck down and he was lying on his deathbed, he pulled his son Abu Fadl al-Abbas close to him. The same Abbas whose arms he would kiss over and over again when he was a child. He pulls him close to him and he hugs him tight. He says to him, my son, on the day of Ashura, you are going to do something which is going to make me very proud, Ya Abbas. Ya Abbas, may you not drink any of the water of the Furat while your brother Hussein is still thirsty. He put his hand in the water and felt how cold it was. Abul Fadl al-Abbas is thirsty. فذكر العطش الحسين. But he remembered the thirst of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein and he began to say, يا نفس من بعد الحسين هوني فبعده لا كنت أو تكوني هذا حسين وارد المنون وتشربين بارد المعين تالله ماذا فعال ديني ولا فعال صادق اليقين. He said, O self, before Hussein you are worthless, for it wasn't for him you wouldn't even be. Hussein is about to drink the cup of death and you wish to drink the cold water. By Allah, this is not what my religion calls for, nor the act of a sincere believer. It is said that he dropped the water and filled the pouch. He put it on his shoulder and left the river. The enemies tried to cut Abu Fadl al-Abbas off. Umar ibn Sa'd shouted, cut the path before him. Shoot the water. By Allah, if the water reaches the camp of Hussein, he will end you all. They surrounded Abu Fadl from all sides as he shouted, لا أرحم الموت إذا الموت زقا حتى أواري في المصالة لقاء نفسي لسبط المصطفى الطهر وقا إني أنا العباس أغدو بالسقا ولا أخاف الشر يوم الملتقى. I fear death of no kind, were death to fall upon me, Abu Fadl al-Abbas is saying, until I'm shown my eternal abode where I'll be ransomed to the grandson of the Prophet. I am Abbas, the thirst quencher as decreed, and I fear no evil, not when death meets me. This is Qamar Bani Hashim, brothers and sisters. Abu Fadl al-Abbas fights the enemies from the left and from the right. The tragedy of Abu Fadl al-Abbas begins here, brothers and sisters. Ajarakumullah. It is said that he was soon ambushed by a couple of enemies behind the palm trees. While Abu Fadl al-Abbas was fighting on the horse, one of the cursed enemies ran up and struck him on his right hand and cut it off. Abu Fadl al-Abbas took the sword with his left hand saying, Wallahi in qata'tum yamini إني أحامي أبدا عن ديني وعن إمام صادق اليقين نجل النبي الطاهر الأمين. He says, by Allah, if you were to cut off my right hand, I will forever defend my religion and the sincere and certain Imam of it, the grandson of the pure and trusted Prophet. Ajarakumullah, brothers and sisters. Abu Fadl al-Abbas was then ambushed again by the other cursed enemy. The enemy swings and cuts off the left hand of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Abu Fadl al-Abbas calls out, Ya nafsu la لا تخشي من الكفار وأبشري برحمة الجبار قد قطعوا ببغيهم يساري فأصلهم يا رب حر النار. O self, do not fear the disbelievers and have good tidings in the mercy of Allah. For from cruelty they have cut off my left hand. My Lord, let them suffer in the heat of the hellfire. It is said that Abu Fadl al-Abbas then held the water in his mouth and all he cared about was taking the water back to the camp, as if to show that Abbas is saying, it's okay if I lost my right and my left arm, as long as the water gets back to Hussein and the women and the children. Listen to what breaks the heart of Abbas in this moment. There came a point when the arrows were being rained on Abu Fadl al-Abbas. It is said that the water pouch was struck with an arrow and the water spilled to the ground. What must have Abu Fadl been feeling in this moment? Allahu Akbar. Ajarakum Allah. It is said another arrow was shot and it hit Abbas straight in the chest. It is said another arrow was shot and it Abu Fadl al-Abbas in his eye. Ya Abbas, no eye to see, no arms to fight with, no water to take back to the tents. Azzam Allahu lakum al-ajr, brothers and sisters. It is said that one of the other enemy soldiers swings an iron rod and hits Abu Fadl al-Abbas on the back of the head, fracturing the skull of Abu Fadl. When a soldier is struck, brothers and sisters, how does he break his fall? How does he break his fall? Allahu Akbar. It is said that there is a time where Allama Majlisi, one of our great scholars, would be reciting the musibah of Abu Fadl al-Abbas. And it is said that he had a dream of Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam. She was telling him, Majlisi, you recited the masaib of Abu Fadl al-Abbas and not the musibah. Majlisi tells Sayyidah Zahra in the dream, he tells her, Mawlati, my master, I recited everything that was there. What did I miss? She tells him, no, Majlisi, tell those that are listening to the tragedy of my son Abu Fadl al-Abbas that the musibah of Abbas is that when you fall from an elevated position, how do you break your fall? My Abbas had no arms to break his fall. Allahu Akbar. The soldier, when he falls, he breaks his fall with his two hands. May we be ransomed for you, Ya Abbas. He fell to the ground upon his face with no arms, shouting, Alayka minni salam, Ya Aba Abdullah. Adrikni ya akhi. Peace be upon you from me, Aba Abdullah. Come and help me, my brother. Aba Abdullah immediately came to Abu Fadl al-Abbas, calling his name. He found him in that state on the burning lands of Karbala. His skull broken, the arrow in his eye and his chest with no arms. Allahu Akbar. Can you imagine seeing your own brother or sister or family member in such a scene who you love so much? What was Aba Abdullah probably thinking in this moment? Maybe he was thinking, Ya Abbas, what have they done to you? Who cut off your arms? Who struck your head? Who hit you in the chest? Who hit you in the eye? Narrations say that Aba Abdullah came to him to pick him up, so Abu Fadl al-Abbas opens up his eye. He asks the Imam, where are you taking me? The Imam then said, back to the tents, Ya Abbas. Abu Fadl al-Abbas replied, I swear to you upon my grandfather Rasulullah that you not pick me up and keep me where I am, Ya Abu Abdullah. It is said that Abu Abdullah puts him back down, sits near Abu Fadl al-Abbas on the ground. He places the head of Abu Fadl al-Abbas in his lap. Abbas moves his head from his lap and put it back to the ground. The Imam returned it back to his lap again. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas again did it on the ground. He does it a third time, and then Abu Abdullah asks him, why is it that when I put your head in my lap, you keep moving it to the ground? Abu Abdullah also asks Abbas, why do you want to stay here and not come back to the tent, Ya Abbas? Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas explains, saying, Akhi, my brother, I promised Sukaina the water. I promised to bring Sukaina water, and I'm embarrassed to go back. Ya Abu Abdullah, you've now come to take me by the head in your lap, but in an hour, who will remove your head from the dirt? What does this do to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam? May Allah reward your brothers and sisters. Soon enough, the holy soul of Abu Fadl al-Abbas departs this world on the lands of Karbala. رحم الله من نادى وعباسا وعباسا. It is said that Abu Abdullah gets up from the plains in the Masra of Abu Fadl al-Abbas and holds his back yelling out, الآن انكسر ظهري. Now my back is broken, Ya Abbas. رحم الله من نادى وعباسا وحسينا. The Imam left Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas near the river. He made his way back to the camp. Imam al-Hussein called out on the day of Ashura, هل من ناصرين ينصرنا? Is there not a supporter to aid us? Is there not a helper to help us? Is there not a demander of truth to fight with us? I say that day, Ya Abu Abdullah, there weren't anyone to answer you, but here are your supporters of your grandson, the awaited Imam al-Mahdi, and we'll be ready inshallah to answer your call. Upon returning to the camp, it is said that Sukaina and the children came to Abu Abdullah asking him where the water is. They were asking him, where is our uncle Abbas? How would Imam al-Hussein respond? He tells her, Sukaina, عظم الله لك الأجر بعمك العباس. Sukaina, may Allah reward you on behalf of your uncle Abbas. And she began to cry and shout. Sayyida Zainab hears the cries. She began to call out, Wa Akha, Wa Abbasa. She gathered herself to go to the river. The Imam al-Hussein had to hold Sayyida Zainab back for going to Abu Fadl on the battlefield, as if she wished to go to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and tell him what was bound to happen to them if they were taken captive after Ashura. Listen to some of the lines of poetry between Sayyida Zainab and Abu al-Fadl regarding this tragedy.
لحظة يا خويا تنتظر محلى جمالك يا البدور مقدار اشوفه معتفور هيد لزينب يا القمر. Oh my brother, wait for me, so beautiful your face it be. I can't you see you on the ground buried. Stay with your Zainab ya Abbas. قلها يا زينب انتظر واحسني حزن احر الشمور لازم افدي هالعمر هو الشمس وانا القمر. Oh Zainab, you say wait for me, while Hussein's head with shimmer you'll see. I must go and give my life for him. He is the sun and I am the moon. لحظة بقبل هل تشوفوه قبل أن تقبل هالسيوف عباس إلى زينب تعوب وتبقى غريبة يا القمر. A moment I kiss your two hands before they're buried in the sands. Abbas, your Zainab left these lands. You leave her estranged, Ya Abbas. What are the final requests of Sayyida Zainab? What would she have said to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas? وسلم على أم الزهرة ولا تنسى ابويا خبره بنتك بقت بسطره لمن مضى وراح القمر. Send my salams to Mother Zahra and tell my father Haidara your daughter stayed covered in Karbala and Abu Fadl left to Allah. Bid farewell with Zainab to Abu al-Fadl, everybody together. مع السلامة يا خير مع السلامة يا خير قربت مني المنية وارفع الصرخة عليا راح القمر راح القمر. My brother, peace be with you. To death I go, my time is due. Cry tears over me and blood too. The moon is gone, the moon is gone. Say your farewells to Zainab ya Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Farewell to you, my sister. My death is now even closer. Cry over me along river. Cry over me along river. Everybody let us send our salams to Abu Abdullah. يا حسين سلام من قلوب أنت فيها. يا حسين لك الأرواح طرا نفتديها. Ya Husseina, peace be upon you from all the hearts you are in. Ya Husseina, peace be upon you from all the hearts you are in. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل بيت محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. To Allah we belong and to Him is our return, and soon the aggressors will know what change their affairs will take, and the end times will be for the righteous. Ya Allah, in the name of Hussein, by the right of Hussein, by the thirst of Hussein, Ya Allah, we ask you to forgive our sins. We ask you to allow us to shed tears and to make a change through these majalis. We ask you to give us a good end on the path of truth. We ask you to fill our hearts with the love of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. We ask you to cure our sick ones and forgive our deceased, Ya Allah. We ask you to bring victory and relief to the oppressed all around the world, specifically those in Palestine, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we ask you to hasten the return of our Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman and to make us amongst his loyal supporters, Ya Allah. Birahmatika Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin. Inshallah, if the brothers can prepare for Latmiyah.